At some point, I was like, either I become president or become deputy president. After serving in 2017 presidential re-election campaign team, I'm not even sure I want to go into elective politics. Even if we hold the thought that the DPP was used by the Kenyatta regime to prefer trumped up charges on people whose now cases are collapsing, because then how do you assure a Kenyan that they are not being used now? Some of the most patriotic Kenyans I have met are in politics, surprisingly. People who love this country dearly. But some of the biggest thieves I have seen are also in politics.
How did you find yourself in the team that was working on the re-election of Uhuru Kenyatta?
It's an interesting story. I think I was largely anti-Jubilee. I was largely critical of the Jubilee government. In 2016, we attended a forum where I invited a friend of mine to that forum at Hesabika in 2016, I think it was in June, and he managed to get a job within the office of the president. That guy's name is Zach. He got some contacts and networks and began working with the government. One day, Zach gave me a call and told me, "Hi Eric, I know you have problems with this government." He said, "I know you have problems with our government, but if you had solutions, if there's anything you could do to help us win an election, would you be willing to do it?" I told him, "What do you mean?" I was like, "We need people who can help us with political strategy in Nairobi County. Are you up for it?" And I told him, there was nothing I was doing at that time. I am always a stickler for professionalism. I had left Oxfam by that time, by the time we were going to the elections. So I was in between jobs, and I was like, I can sit down and watch politics as it unfolds on TV, or I can join and be in the furnace. And so I answered in the affirmative, and so he told me, "I know you have problems with us. Please come and help us find the solutions." And that's how. So between 2016 and 2017, Zach went and managed to work in the office of the president, and then later he got an opportunity to work in the Jubilee merger, the merger of Jubilee constituent parties, which I was minimally involved in, not actively, but indirectly involved in. And then now in 2017, now he reached out, because in 2017 he was charged with organizing the Jubilee Youth League across the country. And that's how he didn't just work with me, he also worked with a number of student leaders. I believe Boit in the Rift. He worked in Academa. He worked with Academa, I believe, in Kisii, and a number of other student leaders in their respective areas of constituency. So for me, it was in Nairobi. So one of the things I did was I coined the name Naini Jubilee, which was the running call for the Jubilee re-election campaign team for the president.
Up with the press.
Yes.
So putting it simply for somebody who doesn't know, what were you exactly doing in the team?
What I was doing in the team is it was mainly organizing the logistics, because we would be doing the roadshows in the various constituencies within Nairobi, and also I think we also did Kiambu. I recall we also did Kiambu. So we would mobilize people and come speak with them, and then of course have members of parliament to come speak with them. If we don't have members of parliament, us, the guys, would be the ones speaking to the people, and then of course would have artists who would perform. So my main role were mostly behind the scenes, coordinating photography work, coordinating the stops, where the stops would be happening, the protocol of who speaks, ensuring that mobilization is done. So Yeah, I think mainly things like those. Social media is up. We have the messaging right. Yeah, those are the things that I was mainly in charge of.
So during that time, what did you learn that you didn't know about national politics?
What did I learn?
Yeah.
I learned. Every time I meet with Zach served in the former government as a chief administrative secretary. Every time we meet and we meet regularly, I tell him I'm very excited for the opportunity that he provided. I'm even glad that I accepted to come and work with a government I had critically criticized. The way David D now is working for Kenya Kwanza, despite having criticized William Ruto. But one of the lessons I learned is I don't need to go into elective politics. Incidentally, I struggled. I learned politics is about hyping masses. Wananchi wants to hear you insulting a politician in very uncouth language, then they celebrate you. Me, I learned every time I was given a mic, guys would not be excited to hear me because I would be speaking about technical things and politics in a very gentleman kind of language. And I learned that it's that time that I told myself I would never want to be a politician who says something in the rally that he cannot repeat before his kids. That is one of the lessons I learned, that because I am not that kind of politician who cannot say one thing in the rally and another thing at home, I would rather not go into elective politics. So when I was younger, I wanted to become president of this country. I wanted to run for presidency. Then at some point I was like, either I become president or become deputy president. After serving in 2017 presidential re-election campaign team, I'm not even sure I want to go into elective politics. I think it's very murky. I don't mind serving as an appointive political position. I feel like my tech competencies might be more respected and beneficial, both for me and the person I'm advising, in an advisory capacity. And maybe I can be doing my own things out there, doing business. But politics, I think politics, I know I will go into politics for sure. But I will go into politics when I'm in my 40s or near 40s. Because one of the other things I learned is that you need to be very, very guarded. And this country has a deficiency of guarded politicians. As in people who know what they want, and they have been able to conquer their appetites. We have a lot of politicians in this country who can be flipped by money very easily, or who can be flipped by other things, women, and promiscuity and all manner of things. I mean, all those things come with the whole politics thing. So what I tell, my biggest prayer right now is that the Lord helps to fortify my character, so that when I get into politics and the cameras are on me, people don't see my underbelly. Because otherwise, you've seen politicians here, you've seen Karen Nyamu, for example. I mean, what is there to admire in the kind of politics that she's playing in this country? And yet we have many other politicians. I mean, when you have a politician who, like Babu, who's shot someone in the manner that he shot, or has been involved in stories that we hear. I mean, all the politicians we've heard about, the stories that surround them. I don't think that is what the idea of politics is. But also that it's one of the areas that you have a direct opportunity to impact change. In fact, one of the reasons why I want to go into politics is because I have learned that you can change people's lives directly. As a member of parliament, as a member of county assembly, run for it. Every time I meet my friends, like those who vied in the last election and the previous one, I encourage them. I get very excited when I see young people wanting to go in. I know I won't go in as a young person into politics, but I get very excited because I have seen that if you are going into politics to cause meaningful change, for sure you can. Everything I do as a civil society actor, as an activist, is policy influencing. we have great ideas, we do policy briefs, we have recommendations, but we are not policy makers. We have to go to policy makers and try to help them see our point. Like now, we've just released a report around the potential of wealth taxation in Kenya. How can we tax the wealth? And yet, I mean, if I was a policy maker, I would just wake up one day and sponsor a bill in parliament about capital gains tax, for example, where we increase it from 5% to maybe 25%, which is the Africa average, or look for other alternatives to tax our wealth, including taxing on net worth, as opposed to going for VAT, which is a regressive tax. But you see, all these things are good ideas, but until you have an elective mandate, ni kelele tu. You can only hope that somehow you're going to meet a politician who hears you and takes up your issue. So that's why I tell myself, I cannot want to retire into the civil society. I would want to retire in public service. Because there, I'll be able to cause meaningful change. All these ideas I wouldn't have been affected by then, we can be able to affect them. So those are, and I've also met very patriotic, some of the most patriotic Kenyans I have met are in politics, surprisingly. People who love this country dearly. But some of the biggest thieves I have seen are also in politics. So it depends with how you fortify your character. So me, I'm just working on my own character here, doing what I need to do, strengthening my strengths and reducing on my weaknesses, so that when I'm there, when I get there, I will be fit for purpose. Yeah.
So for how long did you work with the team? After election, what happens?
No, I haven't. You see, one of the things I possibly didn't mention is that I never wanted. Initially I was supposed to join politics as a young person. A number of people talked me out of it, including Dean Morevi, who told me, Eric, if you mean well for this country, if you want to cause meaningful change, you won't join politics as a young person. Because when you join politics as a young person, politics becomes where you get your daily bread from. So the propensity for you to be corrupted becomes high, because that is where you're getting your daily bread from. But if you join politics as someone after you've built a career, you won't be coming to politics with your hand like this. You'll be coming to give, not to receive, but to give back. And so I think I made a choice when I was still in Muso that I will pursue professional growth. And so every opportunity I have had around political involvement in this country has not been above my work. It has been me creating time out of my work schedule to participate in politics, because for me work is supreme, and I want to build a career in a way that if I join politics and politics does not work out, I can always go back to a career that I have formulated, or something that I can fall back on. So the duration that I worked with was not more than 2 weeks in 2017, because that is the only. In fact, I came in towards the end. If you remember, we had 2 elections, 9th and 26th of October, if I recall. I came in between the first election and the second election. We had 2 elections in the recount, the runoff. No, is it the runoff? The rerun. After the courts nullified the 2017 election. So I came in between the nullification process and the second election. Of course, I've continued to provide political advisory. Even now I do, to my friends who are in the counties, others are in the national level. Occasionally someone will reach out and will ask for my insights. I'll be more than glad to provide my insights. I do that almost all the time. I'm very happy to do that, because I'm deeply passionate about politics, and I hope that Kenyans can be politically literate, not just functionally literate, but also politically literate. And I hope that I can get more opportunities to serve in political advisory and share my thoughts around what I see in the future of this country as we continue to live. Yes.
I want to know your take on the current government, and also what do you think of how the youth that have been elected are portraying leadership?
One, what is my view of the government? I can tell you one of the things I did quite well last year was to analyze manifestos. And I analyzed the Azimio manifesto, analyzed the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, and if you were to score political coalitions on the account of their manifesto promises, Kenya Kwanza carries the day. I think they had very actionable promises. And so one of the things that I was very excited about Kenya Kwanza coming into office is because their promises, in my view, were extremely, extremely pragmatic. If they're going to fix agriculture, which contributes about 23-24% of our GDP, employs more than 40%, and 70% if you include rural and urban, as in 70% I employed within the agricultural value chain or are supported by agriculture. And if they do what they have said they will do on agriculture, you know, agriculture is one of the sectors that is deeply underfunded in this country, less than, I believe, 4% of the national budget, and yet its contribution is 24% of our GDP. The other thing they've promised to do is digital superhighway. I mean, if they're going to expand and make us the leader of digital space in this part of the world, I think it's going to have. We're already seeing a lot of people who are earning through online content. That is not the same in our peers across the region. It has something to do with our broadband strength as a country. So if the promise on digital superhighway is something to go by, I think it's going to be big. But one of the things that really is close to my heart is MSME, micro and small medium enterprises, who contribute to the more than 85% of the non-farm jobs in this country and employ majority of the youth who are leaving campus or university or TVETs or coming out of school every year. If they can fix MSMEs, because I'm a child, my mother is a mama mboga. Wacha hiyo Ruto yenye nasema mama mboga. Hiyo unaona mama mboga yenye Ruto anaongelea. That is my mother is a mama mboga, true and true, as in true and true. Brought up as a in a grocery shop, and that's all I've known. If Ruto and the government can fix those guys and fix them in their entirety, working on their issues and providing access to financing and financial inclusion, I think it's going to really turn the tides around for people. That is one of the things I'm really casting my eye on. The other thing I feel about this government is it's a government that requires a lot of vigilance. It requires a lot of vigilance. The way we are seeing cases being collapsed left, right, and center is something that should worry us. I'm part of a process that will be pushing for the investigation of the ODPP, the Director of Public Prosecution. I believe that he has failed us. Even if the DPP was used, even if we hold the thought that the DPP was used by the Kenyatta regime to prefer trumped-up charges on people whose now cases are collapsing, then it means that we don't have an independent. It means we don't have an independent Director of Public Prosecution. Either way. So if he was used, then for that reason that he was used, he should leave, because he has failed Kenyans. You cannot have. I think it lowers the confidence that Kenyans have on independent commissions, and even for people like us in the space, because we are always trying to demand for more independence, including technical independence and operational capacity to independent commissions and offices. And some of the people who've been speaking for are the Office of the Auditor General, Control of Budget, EACC, DCI, ODPP. How do we continue to push for more operational independence to them if you are now confirming to us that you are used then? Because then how do you assure a Kenyan that they are not being used now? I think it's very worrying. It's very worrying when I see Waitito, for example, a man who has been impeached, now serving in a commission, the Nairobi River Commission. I think it leaves a very bad taste in our mouth. This government has scored highly on economic feasibility proposals. for economy. We've seen them try to reduce the budget deficit. If you follow the IMF fiscal consolidation program, and the IMF recently released the fourth review of the program, and it shows that the deficit is reducing. We are slowly getting out of debt, as in, of course, in the medium term, if what the government continues to do is anything to go by, the removal of subsidies, especially subsidies that were going into people's pockets. We've also seen the way government has been reorganized, where you have the presidency having direct control over the economic affairs. He has the advisory committee led by Dr. D, and then you and some of the functions that those teams are running are functions that are within National Treasury. I think if the fiscal policy in this country fails, Kenya Kwanza will not have an excuse. They will have failed us squarely, and I think so far they are doing a good job. In terms of governance, they are failing us big time. I think they are failing us in the way that they are appointing people with questionable integrity. And you think the idea about integrity is not a legal threshold; it's a moral threshold. If I don't inspire confidence in Kenyans, I should be very far away from leadership. It should not be your business as a president to give people jobs if they are fallen short of the integrity thresholds. If they have cases in court, in fact, we should be able to get a forensic audits of those cases so that we are able to see if they were merited to be dropped. Because we can't have. I mean, now we are seeing even Aisha Jumwa's case is being dropped. Mythical Inturi, surely. It is very disappointing. And I think the only way I see is that I really hope that the opposition is going to get their act together. Because if they don't get their act together, this country is headed for very difficult times. We are already seeing attempts. And we have a presidency who speaks from both sides of his mouth. Who says that he wants a very strong opposition, but then goes and disseminates the same opposition that he wants to check them, to check him. And I hope that the opposition led by Prime Minister Raila Odinga can put the act together, because we need a very strong shadow cabinet. As in, we need people working with civil society and other people holding this government to account, because one of the biggest deficits that the government has is accountability. We are now seeing a government that cares more about efficiency than it cares about accountability. We have been told that people have been told, "Wefanya, we will explain later." As long as umefanya. We've seen with the Hustler Fund and other declarations coming out of it. We can only wish well, because it is unpatriotic to not wish your government well. But my charge to Kenyans is, don't sit back and watch.
On the leadership of elected youth,
There's those who are really inspiring confidence. I mean, I think Sakaja has really inspired confidence. He's one of those people who's really inspired confidence in my generation. There are other people there. There are other people. I mean, Aaron Cheriot, who's a former Muso student leader, and others who are inspired in confidence. But we have student leaders who are not inspired in any confidence, or the youth who are not inspired in any confidence, because I hope that the youthful leaders who are already in leadership remember that they should not remain, as Michelle Obama says, don't leave the door closed, leave it open. Because when you go and carry yourself in a manner that is not dignified, they close the door for other youthful people like us who can come in and who might even lend more capacity than those who are already in. Because they are more brilliant Kenyans. I've met people with brilliant ideas who are not yet in elective politics. We do not know them. But if we are already seeing or questioning the quality of leadership we are seeing from our youth who are already there, I think it means that then we will be struggling to get space for youth as a demographic in our politics. The way we are talking about two-thirds gender, it will become difficult to compete to get a voice on the national space, because when we get a voice, we misuse it. And I think there is nothing that prevents young leaders from coalescing on a youth platform and speaking for it. Speaking for the implementation, for example, of AGPO. We are struggling with AGPO. This country is struggling with AGPO, the access to government procurement opportunities, the opportunities that have been provided for youth. I haven't heard about youthful leaders, whether they are governors or senators or members of parliament or MCAs. I haven't had any youthful leader asking to be shown the register of pending bills to see these pending bills that the government has, what is a proportion that is owed to women, what is a proportion that is owed to youth. No one is speaking about this. And yet those are some of the conversations we expect to hear from our youthful leaders who are there to represent an entire demographic in those spaces at national and at county level.